Welcome to everyone. My name is Shrikant Haigriva. This video is about National Education Policy 2020. Until now, I have made two videos. First one is on the introduction to the National Education Policy, and second one is on the primary education. That is the various recommendations and various facets of recommendations of the National Education Policy about the primary education. In this video, I am going to explain about the higher education, which is part 2 of the National Education Policy. And the content of the video is that the part 2 of the National Education Policy 2020 about the higher education, and there are 11 chapters in this part. First, let us look into what are these chapters are, and then we'll discuss one by one. First chapter is quality universities. Second chapter is institutional restructuring. Third chapter is holistic education. Fourth chapter is optimal learning environment. Fifth chapter is capable faculty. Sixth chapter is equity and inclusion. Seventh chapter is the teacher education. Eighth one is vocational education. Ninth one is new national research foundation. 10th one is regulatory system. 11th one is governance and the leadership. First, let us start with the quality universities. Higher education contributes the sustainable livelihoods, economic development, and to make India into a knowledge economy and society. So these three are important features of this policy, that is making higher education to provide the livelihoods to the students, and to ensure the economic development of the nation, and also to make India as a knowledge economy. So what is this knowledge economy? Knowledge economy means India is not having very competitively great resources when compared with China or other nations, but we are having the human resource. So this human resource with skills can contribute greatly to the world. That is what we are doing now. Our software economy, our software industry, and all these are contributing very greatly to the knowledge economy of the world. So this policy further strengthened this direction, aims to strengthen this the economy towards this direction. Then there are various disciplines like science and social sciences, humanities, professional, technical, and vocational. So let me explain. Professional, according to this policy, means the medical and the legal profession, that is called professional education. Engineering and all the technology graduates is technical. Vocational means the polytechnic, ITA, and etc. That means a skill based education is vocational education. So these subjects are there at the higher education. So the aim of these subjects is to enable the personal accomplishments, economic independence of the youngsters. For the purpose of developing holistic education, there are two things which are important. First one is a set of skills. Second one is the values. So these two are important for the holistic education, that is development of individuals in a holistic manner. So the effort for the holistic education should start at the preschool level, and it should go on at the higher education level as well. What is the purpose of quality higher education? So the purpose of a quality higher education is, along with creation of economic opportunities for the individual, to strengthen a socially engaged, cooperative, cultured, productive, innovative, and progressive nation. So education contributes greatly to the nation building. So quality higher education is also aiming at that. Till now we have gone through some of the introductory remarks of this policy about the higher education. Now let us look into 10 major problems faced by the higher education system in India. These 10 problems according to the policy are: first one is Indian education is severely fragmented. We know that the education is fragmented, like state universities, central universities. Even for the one kind of course, there are multiple entrance examinations and multiple universities, multiple range of institutions offering these kind of courses. So all this is can be called as the severely fragmented higher education ecosystem. So this is the problem number one. Second problem is very less emphasis on the development of cognitive skills and learning outcomes. Our summative assessment aims at giving the certification for the final examinations, but there is no proper emphasis on the skills and learning outcomes, and these are not reflected in the formal stream of education. Third one is a rigid separation of the disciplines, early specialization and streaming of students into narrow areas of study. So what is this problem is all about? This problem is about once a student after completion of his 10th standard enters into science or arts, even in science of biological sciences or mathematical, so all these are fixed at the 10th class level only. So after completion, the choices for the students are going to be very limited. So it is streaming or encouraging the student at very basic level, at early specialization and to a narrow area of study, so that after completion of some technical degree, if a student want to pursue some kind of other education, arts or social sciences, then there is absolutely no possibility in present system. So that is called the problem number 3. Problem number 4 is limited access, particularly in the socio-economically disadvantaged groups, majority areas, and a few higher education institutions teaching local languages. We know the local language teaching has a very limited scope in the higher education. There is local language teaching up to 10th standard or plus 2 level, but there is no further local education or local language is being promoted. This is problem number 4. Then problem number 5 is very limited autonomy to the teachers and higher educational institutions. We know our education right now is university led. University decides curriculum, syllabus, and all the examinations will be done by the university, whereas teacher and higher educational institution becomes mere channel, but there is no autonomy to the teacher or the higher educational institutions. Let us go for problem number 6. Inadequate career management mechanism for the progression of faculty and institutional leaders. Career management of teachers and the faculty is not proper in the universities. There are various levels, assistant professors, associate professors of grades, of various grades with various experiences. So there is no proper and adequate the career management mechanism based on fixed term service and the progress and the academic distinction that they do. So this policy looks into this as a problem number 6. Problem number 7 is lack of emphasis on research. At most universities and colleges, lack of competitive peer-reviewed research funding across the disciplines. Research is being viewed as a requirement, that is PhD becomes a requirement to become an associate professor or the professor, but there is no proper ecosystem that can promote the proper research and bringing outcomes from the research. So based on peer reviewed means research done by one particular person is going to be reviewed by very famous or reputed person of that standard, of that level, that is called peer reviewed. So all these aspects are not being focused right now. This is problem number 7. Problem number 8 is lack of optimal governance and leadership to the higher educational institutions. Governance structure of the universities or higher educational institutions in India primarily is again fragmented. Various state governments control, central government control, and Ministry of Human Resource Development control, and the state education departments control. So there is no proper governance structure. So this is problem number 8. Problem number 9 is ineffective regulatory system. Regulatory system is also ineffective. Why? It is because one particular organization like UGC or AICTE, NAC, all these are doing very limited activity and there is no proper coordination between these organizations. So it leads to the ineffective regulatory system. Then problem number 10 is large affiliating universities resulting into low standards of the undergraduate education. We know there are large number of affiliated institutions to the universities. So very large number of universities are giving scope for the very low standards so there is no proper regulation, no proper norms are being followed. So all this is going to be the 10th problem. These are the 10 problems of higher educational institutions, higher education system as a whole facing. Now let us go to some changes of this policy. This policy proposes 9 key changes to the current system. These are: first one is, this policy aims at making higher education system into a multidisciplinary and one higher educational institution for every district in the local language. So these are three important uh, changes come under first key change, that is multidisciplinary university. So in the coming presentation I would explain you how the graduation, post graduation, PhD, even all the degrees, all the institutions are going to be multidisciplinary. And then one district college at every district to promote the penetration of education up to the very rural level. Local and Indian languages are also going to be promoted. Actually I have explained about the Indian languages and local language promotion in the previous video as well, in the primary education. Now the trend is also being incorporated into the higher educational system. Second key change is multidisciplinary at the undergraduation level as well, that is going to be introduced according to by this policy. Third one is autonomy to the faculty and the institution. So how the autonomy is going to be given, let us look into it in the coming further presentation. Then revamped curriculum and pedagogy and assessment for the enhancement of students experience. So this is also going to be a key change, that is key change number 4. So how the curriculum and pedagogy is going to be revamped and remodeled, also all these things are also there in this policy. Fifth key change is career progression in higher education institutions, that is for the faculty, on based on merit in teaching and the research. So career progression mechanism is also being proposed in this policy. This is also a very key change in this policy. Then sixth change is National Research Foundation to fund peer reviewed research to promote research culture in the universities and colleges. There is a separate chapter dedicated in this part 2 of the that is higher education of national education policy about the National Research Foundation. There we will look into all the details of National Research Foundation, but this is a very key change that promotes the research in India. Seventh key change is governance of HEI is going to be by independent boards with academic and administrative autonomy. So a board is going to be created, and how this board is going to function and what are the members of this board. So all these are going to I would explain you in the coming presentation. Eighth key change is regulation system should be in a manner of light but tight. So that is simple regulation should be there, along with very strict and stringent regulation should also be there. So these two are going to be balanced in this policy. So this policy proposes a single regulator, that is Higher Education Commission of India, for the entire higher education. A very complex organization system that this policy is proposing. This is key change number 8. Now let us go to key change number 9, that is increased access through steps like greater opportunities in the public education, scholarships by private and philanthropic universities, socio-economically disadvantaged groups, online education, open and distance learning. So this is also a significant change that this policy promotes. There are going to be special education zones in line of the aspirational districts that the Modi government or the present government is going in the direction. So, and then there is greater emphasis on the online education and open distance learning. So this we are going to discuss in the further presentation. So this is key change number 9. So till now we have completed introductory remarks, problems of 10 problems of higher education, and 9 key challenges of the higher education by national education policy. This is chapter number 1 over, and second chapter is about institutional restructuring. So what is this institutional restructuring? As I have told in the previous chapter, multidisciplinary universities are going to be established, higher education institution clusters and knowledge hubs are going to come, and the universities will be of very large with 3000 plus students, and with the communities of to build the communities of scholars and peers to promote cross disciplinary research with efficiency of both material and human resources. So this is going to be the aim of this policy. That means this policy is going to create multidisciplinary large scale universities with scholars and peer researchers and etc. Then we have a modern model of ancient Indian universities. So these ancient Indian universities are Takshashila, Nalanda, Vallabhi, Vikramshila. So these ancient Indian universities work based on the cross-disciplinary or multidisciplinary environment. So essentially these universities were about the philosophy and yoga practices and the very various observational studies, etc. So but all these are grouped together, these universities grouped together, the Vedic, Buddhist and Jainist philosophies, all these were the multidisciplinary environments and multidisciplinary universities. So these demonstrated a great success in the ancient India. So National Education Policy 2020 aims at creating a new conceptual perception and framework and understanding of a universities and higher educational institutions in the lines of the ancient Indian model of multidisciplinary university. There are going to be three broad types of institutions. What are these three broad types? First one is autonomous degree granting college. Second one is university. Third one is research intensive university. So these are three broad types of universities. And these broad universities is not a rigid classification again. This is going to be in a continuum. That means a high degree granting autonomous college can become the university by in a graded manner, in a step-by-step manner. A stage-wise mechanism to grant the graded autonomy to colleges through a transparent system of accreditation, and colleges to be encouraged and incentivized to gradually attain the minimum benchmarks at each level. That is at the level of autonomous college, university and research intensive university. So all these are going to be multidisciplinary universities, so based on some basic norms and the benchmarks. Autonomous degree granting college is the first type of higher education institution according to this policy, and autonomous degree granting college to be a multidisciplinary institutions would generally be a smaller than typical university. With the proper structure and accreditation, autonomous degree college could evolve into the research intensive or teaching intensive university. So that is a logical continuum over a period of time based on the accomplishments, achievements and the teaching and the research, faculty and various aspects. So these universities are going, these autonomous colleges can further become the research intensive universities. There is a hub and spoke model presented in this policy. So what is this hub and spoke model? That means one particular university will be taken, that is going to be developed as a model university, that is a hub university, and there will be various other universities that are depending on it. So there is a culture of universities building together is going to be established. So in that manner, every higher education institution to support other higher educational institutions in the development and the community engagement, contribution to various fields and practices, that means faculty development, higher education system, and to support the school education. So this is going to be a collaborative culture among the higher educational and the institutions amongst themselves, also with the primary or school educations. So this is the structure this policy is aims at. Then by 2030, plan to become multidisciplinary should be done by every higher education institution, that is at least by 2020, prioritarily by 2030. every higher educational institution should aim to become the multidisciplinary, and if not, then by 2040 all the universities in India, all the higher educational institutions in India shall aim to become the multidisciplinary institutions. Then by 2030, one large and high quality higher education institutions near every district by public, private and local Indian languages or bilingually is going to come up. That is, public and private investment will be there, promotion will be there, so that in the local language. And bilingually means we know the dominant higher education in India is in English language, and along with that there should be some local translations and local languages that are taught, so that is called the bilingual approach. If not exclusively in the local language, there will be bilingual approach need to be and is going to be adopted. Then the gross enrollment ratio. What is gross enrollment ratio? Gross enrollment ratio means the number of students of particular age who are inside the higher education system out as a proportion to the total number of students that are there in the whole nation. So this is gross enrollment ratio. And the higher education including vocational education uh, to be considered for the gross enrollment ratio. Right now it is 26.3% in 2018. Aim of this policy is to make it 50%, that means double it by 2035. That is, by 2035 this policy aims at making the universities, means the gross enrollment ratio, by 50% in the coming 15 years. Institutions with the accreditation to have open and distance learning and online programs to improve the gross enrollment ratio. So open and distance learning is the learning in the future. Because of various technological platforms, technology tools, and also the duration of courses can be flexible, so timing and time and etc., all these are going to be covered very greatly in the open and distance learning, will be saved in the open and distance learning. So online programs to be uh, developed by all the institutions which with the accreditation process, so to improve the gross enrollment ratio. So this is also the guideline of this sustainable development goal number 44. And what is the sustainable development goal number 4? In the first video I have explained, so you can watch it. A new regulatory system to gradually phase out the systems of fragmented institutions like affiliate. There are various institutions in India, as I explained earlier. These are affiliated colleges and many types of colleges. So all these are through a process of graded autonomy in a challenging mode through a national effort, a suitable mentoring and government support. So with all these things, gradually phase out the system of affiliated college. Only three kinds of institutions exist. Those are autonomous degree granting college, universities, and research intensive universities. Then the overall higher education sector aims to be integrated. The higher education system include professional and the vocational education. So higher education system, as I explained earlier, professional means the medical and legal professions. Vocational education means the ITIs, various polytechnic colleges. So all these are the vocational education. So all this is going to be merged together to give a holistic education. Various higher education institutions in India are very fragmented structure. So some examples are, there are deemed universities in India, there are affiliating universities in India, there are affiliating technical universities, there is unitary university, there is so all these are universities. All these kind of universities are going to be merged with a simple term called the universities, which is mid level, that is second level institution in the three broad type of higher educational institutions. So there is going to be some standardization according to the world standards, that is only one university will be there, not all these affiliated and deemed universities, so making them into one stream. Okay, till now we have completed the second chapter, that is institutional restructuring of the various higher education institutions. We have gone through all types of education institutions and how regulatory system is going to function and all. And then now look into the holistic education. So what is this chapter number 3, holistic education? There is an ancient text called Kadambari, written by great Sanskrit poet the Bhanabhatta. He says there are 64 kalas or arts like singing, painting, chemistry, mathematics, carpentry, clothes making, medicines, engineering, communication, discussions, debates, etc. So this is the 64 kalas, 64 arts means the entire education is remodeled into the form of 64 in number. These are considered as arts. So this is the ancient Indian idea of the education. Now let us go to the modern arts. So what are these modern liberal arts? In the modern times we are coming to a new concept called liberal arts. Liberal arts means the entire education, whatever a human can learn and human can express, so that is being considered as a liberal art. So this concept resembles the ancient Indian wisdom, that is long tradition. I think all of us might have heard this concept called 64 arts. That means a person who is capable of doing 64 arts, he mastered in the 64 arts being respected. So this ancient wisdom is also resembles the modern arts, and that means in the modern times. So this linkage is highlighted by this policy. There is an assessment practice in India, that is we assess in India various courses and programs based on the science and technology, engineering and mathematics. So this is called STEM. So this has consistently showed a positive learning outcome. So this process of assessment is going to be strengthened further. Then a multidisciplinary and flexible approach in the languages, literature, music, philosophy, Indology, art, dance, theatre, education, mathematics, statistics, pure and applied sciences, sociology, economics and sports, etc. is going to come out. So what is this all about? There is going to be a flexible approach. This policy highlights some, we have discussed earlier, 10 problems of higher education. If you recall, one of these problems are that the once the student at the very early stage of specialization is streamed into a narrow field of study, that is if he selected some subject at the 10 plus 2 level, then he need to go on with till the PhD or till further education with that approach. So now this policy aims to overcome this problem by flexible approach of inclusion of all the mentioned languages here into uh, one course, so that one education can be truly multidisciplinary. Higher education institutions to include a credit based course. So what is credit based course? I have courses, I have explained you the various subjects constitutes to a multidisciplinary education. So every subject is to have some credits, and based on the credits that a student get, there will be graduation, post graduation programs. So in this manner, this education is going to be integrated into one education where a person can choose the credits and the subjects, and he can complete the course in the manner that he want. So that is all about the integration of entire education system into 64 arts or kalas or modern liberal arts, etc. Now let us come to the higher education from the graduation level. At the undergraduation level, there is going to be 3 degree and the 3-year degree or the 4-year degree with multiple exit options. Like if a student completes first year, he will be given a vocational or professional certificate. If a student stops the education after second year, there will be diploma, and after third year there will be bachelor degree. So these are 3-year degree program. Now what is 4-year degree program? In the fourth year there will be degree with research. So student will be exposed to the rigorous research projects in the major areas of specialization, so by the higher education institution. So 4-year degree program is going to be a degree with the research degree. So there will be an academic bank of credit to be established digitally, so that if a student, there will be credits will be given for every subject, for every option, and for every extracurricular activity, and for every uh, student community activities in the students. So there, based on these all activities, there is going to be a academic bank of credit. So digitally this will be accessible to everyone, so that there will be very strong, this will be a very strong concept in the resume. Then let us come to the master education programs. There are going to be three kinds of master degree programs. These are 2-year program with the second year devoted to research, and then 1-year master degree program, then integrated 5-year program. This is already running right now. Now this 1-year master degree program is being introduced newly. That means for the students who have completed their 4-year research degree, 4-year degree with the research, they will be exposed to this master degree program, and this program is going to be for 1 year, and this first one is, that is 2-year program, is also there right now. Then let us come to PhD. So right now there is an MPhil education, and in the after this policy will be enforced, there will be no MPhil, that is Master of Philosophy, will be discontinued, and the entry points for the PhD are two, that is master degree of 2 years or 3 years or 1 year, or the bachelor degree or the 4-year bachelor degree. So students who have completed the 4-year bachelor degree can do the PhD, or the master degree also can do PhD. So these are two entry points, and MPhil program to be phased out. There will be a model public universities created by the government to enforce the holistic education at par with IITs and IIMs, etc. So these model organizations with the public investment are to be called as MERUs, that is multidisciplinary education and research universities. So these are going to set up as a hub of the model education, model university. I have explained you about hub and spoke model. So for that, these institutions are going to work as a hub in providing the quality education in local standards, in the global standards. Higher education to focus on the research, but research alone is not sufficient. So research need to be linked with the industry. So for that reason, there are going to be startup centers, startup incubation centers, technology centers and development center, technology development centers. So all these are going to be in collaboratively to work with the higher educational institutions to translate the research outcomes into the educations, into the industry. So to establish some kind of culture of proper research and implementation of the research in a interdisciplinary manner. Already there is some key change, that is National Research Foundation. And what is about National Research Foundation, there is separate chapter in this presentation, but for this purpose, like the purpose of holistic education, the National Research Fund is going to support the vibrant researchers innovation culture across higher education institutions, research labs and other research organizations. So this is going to be a holistic structure. So till now we have completed the holistic education, and now let us go to the fourth chapter, that is optimal learning environment. Learning environment is very interesting. It should be very important. So interesting and the relevant learning environment helps students to learn more and more with the same kind of resources and the infrastructure. So this policy aims to make the curriculum very interesting and the relevant to the proper environment, and it need to be updated regularly. We know the updation of the universities or the state level curriculum happens in between 10 to 15 years. So in 10 to 15 years, in the present phase of technology and development, it is not possible to cope up with the present circumstances. So regular updation process to incorporate the latest knowledge requirements to meet specific learning outcomes. So this is going to be focused in this policy. Then creativity of the institutions and the faculty by providing autonomy to be promoted. We know that one of the problems of this of our education system is there is no proper autonomy to the institution or the faculty, but these people are just becoming channels or the people of execution. Now there is going to be some autonomy to change the curricular examples to suit the students, and also for the institution are going to be permitted. And already a key change, that is open and distance, online and traditional in class mode. So all the modes of education, there is going to be some kind of autonomy to the faculty. There is going to be a choice based credit system. So what is choice based credit system? That means a student not only limited to final year examinations, he should do some other things, but doing this other thing is not mandatory right now. A student who is innovative and creative, who want to do something, but there is no scope for him, so to do away with this, to provide the recognition to extracurricular activities, so this is being introduced, that is choice based credit system, where a student who organizes some kind of meeting and etc., all these kind of things are going to be represented in his final degree. So in that, with that purpose, choice based credit system is going to be revised, and the higher education institutions to move to a criterion based grading system and assessment of students based on the learning goals of each program, but not based on the marks and the percentages. This is important suggestion. Institutional development plans. Now if we look into the institutions, there will be missions, objectives, statements of the universities, maybe private, philanthropic or public, but this policy aims to develop institutional development plans at least for the coming 15 years. So the institution should have a plan for the 15 years. That means what this organization is going to do in the span of 15 years, in the coming 15 years. So that is stressed in this policy. So each institution is going to frame an academic plan by the faculty, with the, from the classroom level till the large university level. So that is called the institutional development plans based on the outcomes. Then we know the socio-economically disadvantaged group students are facing problems even after entering into the higher education stream in the very reputed and good institutions. So to solve their problems, this policy aims to establish some support centers by the universities and colleges to these students, maybe with adequate funds or the resources for them to understand, to cope up with the higher learning. So to assist the students from SEDG communities, this policy aims to establish high quality support centers, so to promote successful transition into the higher education. Open and distance learning is going to be focused in this policy. So what is the purpose of this open and distance education? This is primarily increases access to the students. So it shows some quality higher education, because in a very remote universities where the a professor from IIT teaches a particular topic, and if he watches it, then he will be equipped with the quality higher education. In the regular stream, it is not possible. So open and distance learning is going to be renewed, and with the concerted efforts and equivalent higher education, equivalent to the high quality in class program. So open and distance learning courses to be designed and developed in a manner to in comparative terms with the in class programs. Then internationalization at home. We know that many students are coming to India right now. India is a hub of the technical education for various people from Africa, from Southeast Asia. Now this policy aims to promote the Indian languages and Ayush medicine, yoga, music, history, culture, modern Indian sciences, social sciences, primarily the Indology and the Sanskrit studies. So these are becoming famous in the European and American universities. So all these subjects are going to be included to make the India as a hub for international students. This government is using this term very frequently, that is India should become the Vishwaguru, that means teacher to the world or teacher to the universe. So in this line, the International Studies Office to be established at each higher education institution to coordinate the research, teaching, and with the high quality foreign institutions. So we know that each higher education institution in India of from the universities or IITs, IIMs, all these are having international student offices. So now this is going to promote the international student offices to collaborate the research with the world grade universities to make India Vishwaguru. Then the MOUs, that means Memorandum of Understanding with the foreign universities, to be signed with the Indian universities to encourage and set up campuses. Other universities in top 100 universities in the world are also will be facilitated to operate in India. We know that our great institutions like ISRO and uh, DRDO and all these are having various MOUs with the various foreign country organizations of same stature. So in the similar manner, in India also the universities are going to sign MOUs with the foreign countries in mutual terms, mutually engaging with each other, whereas those universities come to India and Indian universities also establish center outside. Then this policy aims at creating a proper legislative framework to be put in place, and the universities to be given special dispensations regarding regulatory governance content norms at par with other autonomous institutions in India. So legislative framework means there are some universities, central universities made by central acts, and there are various universities by legislation itself. So a new legislative framework is going to put in place, is going to be is going to come, and so that is the aim of this policy. Then we know the stress and emotional adjustments or emotional aspects are increasingly coming, and we know that many people, the All India Institute of Medical Sciences are reporting the students with the pressure and with the stress and with the abnormal behaviors, maybe addiction to the technological tools like mobile phones are increasing day by day. So to keeping this in view, the higher education institutions to focus on counseling systems and stress and emotional management of the student. A national scholarship portal is going to be expanded. Now there are large number of scholarships, large number of funding programs, incentives for the meritorious students, but this policy aims at linking them all together, and by expanding the national scholarship portals for all the socio-economically disadvantaged groups, also for the other students, so to offer and to properly coordinate the scholarship programs. So we have completed the fourth chapter, that is on optimal learning environment elaborately, and now let us go into the fifth chapter, that is capable faculty. So this policy talks in great deal about the faculty. So we know that the faculty engagement and the quality of faculty is at the center point of the higher education institutions. However, the education institutions robust and vibrant may be, but faculty engagement and quality of faculty cannot be substituted. So this policy aims at a proper career progression to encourage the faculty and equitable representation from various groups of the faculty in a multidisciplinary university. The basic infrastructure required for the faculty, that means clean drinking water, toilets, office, teaching supplies, libraries, labs, classroom spaces, campuses with the latest educational technology. So all these are going to come to enhance the learning experiences of the students and teaching experience of the faculty. So teaching experience of the faculty is directly linked to the students' outcomes. Then there is a transfer culture in India where university for student faculty from one university is going to be frequently transferred to other universities, etc. So to stop this, faculty to be appointed at the individual institutions. So to have a proper link up with the university or the higher education institution along with the students, so to facilitate this communication, a stability of tenure is going to be guaranteed, and by stopping the transferring this transfer culture. Then faculty to be given freedom or to design curriculum pedagogy with an approved framework of textbook, reading material and assignments, etc. Now there is no such kind of system, and there is an innovative teaching and research is going to be promoted. That means with the autonomy, teacher can slightly adjust the curriculum and the syllabus. Also, assessment practice can be adjusted. So this is what this policy is all about. And but how this is going to be realized, that need to be looked into. Then incentivization, rewards, promotions and recognitions are important for the faculty, because once these are there, faculty will be promoted for the good teaching and the research experience. So to encourage the faculty, these are to be promoted. Along with this, the faculty need to be accountable, so based on quality norms, and the basic norms should be there to make the faculty accountable. So both kind of rewards and the punishments should go hand in hand to make the faculty capable faculty. There is going to be a tenure track. Now there is excessive focus on experience but not on other things. Now this policy aims at making tenure track, that is including the probation period, for starting from the probation period till the present condition, all the tenure of this particular faculty is going to be looked into in a transparent manner and defined and with an independent and transparent manner. As I explained right now, there is only excessive focus on the experience, so multiple parameters are going to be introduced into the tenure. What is tenure? Tenure is about the probation, promotion, the salary, and incentives, etc. Now the multiple parameters are to be introduced. These are peer and student reviews, innovation in teaching, research and services to the community, to be developed by each higher educational institutions in its institutional development plans. This is about the sixth chapter, that is equity and inclusion. Now let us go to we have completed the fifth chapter, that is capable faculty and various suggestions about the faculty. Now let us go to the sixth chapter, that is equity and inclusion. To uplift socio-economically disadvantaged groups from the cycle of disadvantage. So what is this cycle of disadvantage? Because the education should be uh, provided to the student, so student can catch the education at the very young age, of course at the age of very young in his life. But a student who is unable to catch that at that point in time, he will be engaged in some economic productivity, economic activity, like he will be engaged in the jobs or employed somewhere. Later to come into the formal education system is will be very difficult in the present structure. So this cycle of disadvantage which student slips into, and he will be in that cycle. So this policy aims at inclusion of school and higher education in a continuum, in continuously, so across all the stages, to provide a sustainable reform that students should come out of this cycle to educate himself in a proper manner. So as I explained, so what are the reasons? The lack of knowledge, economic cost, and financial constraints of the family or the individual, and admission processes, geographical and language barriers, and poor employability of programs. And so this all these are coming to be a problems. That means lack of appropriate student support, which is reason for which a student will be slipped into the cycle of disadvantage. Now this policy proposes some steps should be taken by the governments to bring the students out of this cycle of disadvantage. First is sustainable government funds to be uh, spent on the socio-economically disadvantaged groups. Second one is targeted based approach based on very clear targets should be established and promoted for the socio-economically disadvantaged groups. Then gender balance in higher education institutions need to be reduced and it need to be balanced. Then high quality higher education institutions in aspirational districts and the special educational education zones to be promoted. That we know that there are various underdeveloped states in India, districts in India. So this present government came out with a plan of aspirational districts to develop them. So to improve the access, special education zones are to be created in the similar lines of aspirational districts. Fifth one is local and Indian language or bilingual education to be promoted. What is bilingual education? I already explained till now. What is bilingual? That is, if local language is not possible, then along with the foreign language like English, the appropriate local terminologies are going to be used to make the students can translate from one to another. Sixth one is financial assistance and scholarships to the socio-economically disadvantaged groups in both public and private higher educational institutions. Outreach programs on the higher education to give opportunities and scholarships among socio-economically disadvantaged groups. So there are various schemes are there, but now implementation is a problem. So to stop this, there is an outreach program to be organized by this policy. Then technological tools, like we know online teaching tools for the better participation, like meeting softwares, like conference software. So all these are going to come, all these are going to be developed to enhance participation and learning outcomes. These are the steps that are to be taken by the government. Now there are some steps suggested by this policy should be taken by the higher education institutions. First one is try to mitigate the opportunity cost and fees for pursuing higher education. So higher education institutions need to cover the opportunity cost, to reduce the cost, to encourage the student. So more financial assistance and scholarships to socio-economically disadvantaged students. Third one is outreach programs for the higher education, opportunities with the scholarships. Fourth one is admission process should be more inclusive. Fifth one is curriculum should be more inclusive, that means autonomy to the students and the institutions. Then sixth one is employability of higher educational programs. We know that this policy aims at economic development, the uh, financial support to the financial independence of the youngsters. So employability of the higher educational institutions need to be ensured by the higher educational institutions itself. Then more degree courses in the Indian language and the bilingual language need to be focused. The disabled, this is Sugamya Bharat etc. schemes launched by the government to make every building accessible to disabled, that is wheelchairs or various toilets, drinking water facilities should be accessible by the disabled or the Divyang people. Ninth one is there should be bridge courses, like uh, a person after graduation can do some bridge course to change his stream into some other. So if he want to pursue some other stream of education, the bridge courses will be provided. 10th one is socio-emotional and academic support and mentoring for such students with suitable counseling and mentoring. We know the former president of India, APJ Abdul Kalam, Mr. APJ Abdul Kalam, he used to speak about the spiritual centers at various institutions to give some moral backing, so to give some ethical conduct to students. So in the similar lines, there is a mentor and socio-emotional and academic support to the students that is going to come. Then sensitization of faculty, counselors, and students on gender identity issues in all aspects of higher educational curriculum. So sensitization of faculty should be done uh, because faculty should be able to understand the gender issues and gender identity and the problems of the student. This is the duty of the higher education institution itself. Then 12th one is strict enforcement of all number all no discrimination and anti-harassment rules. We know the ragging is a problem in India, harassment is a problem in the Indian universities. So all to cover all this, a strict enforcement of or the no discrimination and the anti-harassment rules are going to come by the higher education institution itself. 13th one is a institutional development plan. What is institutional development plan? That I have explained you, the 15 years action plan of the institution. So where the institution should be, where it want to be. So including the various participation from socio-economically disadvantaged groups. So all these are going to be with a free hand. The institution is going to decide it. So we have completed the equity and inclusion chapter. So there are some steps to the government, steps taken by the governments, and there are the steps that should be taken by the higher educational institutions. Now let us enter into the 7th chapter. We have discussed about the faculty, what is faculty, career management, etc. But what is about teacher education at the higher education level? So that we are going to discuss in this chapter. So there is an important statistic mentioned by this policy. According to Justice J.S. Verma Committee, there are 10,000 higher teacher training institutions which are of substandard. They are simply selling the degrees. So this is very grave concern expressed by the Justice J.S. Verma Committee. So to correct this, there is going to be a proper regulatory system with a stringent and actions against substandard teaching educational institutions, and by 2030 this policy aims at making teacher education programs a very sound and very valid. Then teaching education institutions to be converted into multidisciplinary institutions by 2030, and all universities should establish the educational departments and run Bachelor of Education programs in collaboration with other departments like psychology and philosophy, etc., to make the course of Bachelor of Education a multidisciplinary. Then there is going to be a 4-year integrated B.Ed program in a multidisciplinary manner by the higher education institutions with a minimum degree qualification for the school teachers by 2030. So after 2030, every school teacher should be a Bachelor of Education, that is 4-year integrated B.Ed graduate. Then there are going to be 3 types of B.Eds. Those are 4-year integrated multidisciplinary Bachelor of Education, and then 2 years B.Ed for those who have completed 3-year bachelor degree, and 1 year for those who have completed 4-year bachelor degree. And there should be some kind of scholarships provided for this 4-year, 2-year, and 1-year Bachelor of Education programs. Then teacher education programs to ensure experts in education and specialized subjects to associate work closely with a network of government and private schools, but not the presently the teacher education industry or the institutions are going in a bad direction. So to correct them, there should be a network of government and private schools should be linked to the teacher education institutions, and experts and specialized subject need to be available to teach to the students of the education. Then uniform standards of admission need to be maintained by an aptitude test, that is entry test to the Bachelor of Education or education program should be done by an entry test by National Testing Agency, which conducts the JEE examination, UGC NET examination. So this institution is going to conduct a test of admission into the education program. So that is a suggestion of this policy. Then a faculty profile in the Department of Education should be diverse, multidisciplinary, psychology, child development, linguistics, sociology, philosophy, economics, political science, science, mathematics, and social science. So faculty who teaches in these educational institutions should be based on the multidisciplinary and diverse. So the faculty who teaches the education programs should be of including the multidisciplinary of all these kind of subjects. Then all fresh PhD entrants, that means the students who want to pursue their PhD, they should take a credit based course in teaching, in education, in pedagogy and writing related to chosen PhD subject and during their doctoral training program. So teaching should be mandatory for all PhD students who are going to enter from this point in time. Then PhD students should have a credit based minimum number of hours of actual teaching experience through assistantships and other means. The university should promote this kind of culture and they should encourage the PhD students on basis of credit. That means as a part of curriculum they should teach a number of hours of actual teaching. Then the in-service professional developments, that means faculty teachers who are already engaged, already employed as teachers, they should also go to professional development courses through online Swayam, Diksha platforms and online training. So the already working teachers also should be encouraged to pursue their training. Then this government is going to establish a national mission for mentoring with a large pool of senior and retired faculty, including those with the ability to teach in the Indian languages, to provide short-term and long-term support to the university teachers and the college. So there is going to be a repository, there is going to be a institution, that is National Mission of Mentoring, by all the retired and senior faculty members to support the students, to support the faculty members at the universities and the colleges. So this is about the 7th chapter, that is teacher education. Now let us enter into the vocational education. So there is a statistic, that is 12th 5-year plan, that is from 2012 to 2017, estimated that less than 5% of Indian workforce in the age group of 19 to 24 receive formal education, whereas in countries like USA it is 52%, Germany it is 75%, and in South Korea it is 96%. So in India less than 5% of the formal vocational education, so very less number. So this need to be covered by the policy. So but what are the problems? Vocational education right now is largely focusing on the grade 11 and 12, that is ITIs, maybe polytechnic institutions. So they are focusing on the 11 and 12, but we know the dropout rates in India are very high in the grade 8 and upwards. So students are not coming to 12 and the grades 11 and 12 where the vocational education is being trained. So this is a major problem of the vocational education, because less than 5% students are being trained vocationally. This is fundamental reason. So to one more thing is, there is lack of vertical mobility. That means students who have completed ITI or polytechnic, there is no further education to offer to them. But National Skill Qualification Framework has designed a particular option that persons who have completed the ITI and etc., ITI and the polytechnic, they can do their graduation in engineering stream and etc., that is promoted by National Skill Qualification Framework in 2013. So that should be enhanced. That is the suggestion of this policy. Then vocational education is perceived as an inferior to mainstream education. That means students are not uh, interested in joining ITIs, not in polytechnic institutions, because of their perception that it is inferior to the mainstream education. So this is a perceptual barrier. Then this policy will ensure that every child at least learn one vocation and is exposed to several more. At the school level, every child should go to one vocation. When I was discussing about the primary education uh, recommendations, there is also a mention at the primary school level to promote the vocation of Indian arts and artisanship, and to inculcate something called a dignity of labor, and importance of various vocations need to be understood by students. So that is being incorporated into higher education as well. By 2025, at least 50% of learners through school and high school education to be exposed to vocational education, and the action plans with the targeted and timelines to be developed. So that means a targeted and timeline approach should be taken up, so that by 2025, that is from 5 years from now, at least 50% of the learners should go to the vocational education. This is the targeted timeline. Then vocational education to be included to achieve the GER targets, this already I mentioned, and the ITIs, polytechnics, local industry should be collaborated in a hub and spoke model to allow the other schools to it. That means I have explained you about hub and spoke model, and all these students are also being included into the GER targets to achieve the GER, that is 50% GER target by 2035. So that is the aim of this policy. Then Bachelor of Vocation degree introduced in 2013 from NSQF framework that need to continue, and vocational courses to be available to the students of bachelor's programs through short-term certification courses and skills. So to make vocational as a lok vidya, that means education of the masses or the education of the people. So vocational knowledge should be promoted through ODL, so that means open and distance learning should be used to make the vocational education the education of the common man. Then Ministry of Human Resource Development to form a national committee for integration of vocational education, that is NCIVE, with experts in vocational education to focus on skill gaps and mapping of the local opportunities along with other ministries and the industries. National Skill Qualification Program to be a framework to be detailed for all disciplines of vocational education. Indian standards to be aligned to international standards of ILO, international standards of occupation of ILO. What is ILO? International Labour Organization, which is one of the prominent organization of the United Nations. Now, a credit-based framework to facilitate mobility across the vocational education and the general education. So, a credit-based approach to be taken to include the vocational education into the mainstream. So this is about the chapter number 8, that is vocational education. Now let us go to chapter number 9, that is new national research foundation. We have the ancient civilizations like India, Mesopotamia, Egypt, and Greece, that is Indus Valley civilization. India means Indus Valley civilization. So all these are progressed based on the research and the knowledge. So this is the ancient stream. We know that artifacts of Indus Valley civilization, pots and jewelries, etc., that come out. So that was not possible without the proper research and the knowledge, right? So that is an estimation that these ancient civilizations progressed based on the research. Now we should look at the modern developed states like United States, Germany, Israel, South Korea, and Japan. All these are knowledge societies. We know the Silicon Valley, we know the Germany products, the industrial products, and Israeli defense products, and South Korea vehicles and etc., and Japan the development. So maybe the ancient or the modern civilizational states, all these are focusing on the research. So research is very important. There are new chapters, new kind of educations that are coming, that is climate change, population dynamics, management, biotechnology, digital marketplace, machine space, machine learning, and artificial intelligence. So all these are new and important concepts that are emerging day by day. So all these are required to make the research ecosystem in India. Then research and innovation investment in India is only 0.69% of GDP. So that is very low, that is 0.69% of GDP is on education. So why this is important? Because the gross domestic product, that means the products that India design over a period of time, should be equally distributed. Like there should be education also should contribute to the GDP. So whereas this stat is 2.28% of USA, 4.3% in Israel, and 4.2% in the South Korea. So it is very less, and this policy aims to make it 5% over a period of time. So there are societal challenges. So research is not something superficial that we want to create, but the research should address the local problems that the society is facing, like clean drinking water, sanitation, education, healthcare, transportation, air quality, energy, infrastructure, required quality, interdisciplinary research. So all interdisciplinary research should focus on solving the societal challenges like all these India is facing right now. There should be a shift in the school education to a play and discovery and scientific methods to inculcate the research at very young age on the principle of catch them at young principle, that is the research of all higher education institutions through internships, undergraduation, faculty give weightage to research and governance and regulatory changes for the research mindset. So this research mindset should be developed at the very early and young age. This National Research Foundation to fund a merit-based, peer-reviewed research at the central and state universities, industry, agencies of the government, private and philanthropic organizations. So National Research Foundation is going to function as a complex activities of all these kind of universities and institutions. Then National Research Foundation to be run by a rotating board of governors. That means this fund is going to be run by not by rigid persons but a rotating board of governors consisting of the best researchers, innovators, in coordination with the Department of Science and Technology, Department of Atomic Energy, Department of Biotechnology, Indian Council of Agriculture Research, Indian Council of Medical Research, Indian Council of Historical Researchers, University Grants Commission, various private and philanthropic organizations. So heads of all these people or the researchers from all these people, all these institutions going to come and form a board of governors on a rotation basis. This National Research Fund is going to be granted, is going to be functioned. Then what are the primary activities of the National Research Foundation? So there are 4 primary activities of the National Research Foundation. These are, first one is to fund competitive, peer-reviewed grant proposals of all types and across all the disciplines. So all the research proposals and grant proposals to be reviewed. This is the first activity of the National Research Foundation. Second activity is facilitate the research. To facilitate the research at the academic institutions, particularly at the universities and colleges, through mentoring of such institutions. So it is going to, NRF is going to mentor the universities and to facilitate the research. Third one is it is going to act as a liaison or the facilitator of the research branches of government, industry, research scholars, national research issues, policy makers to bring outcomes of the policy into implementation. So outcomes of the research should come into policy and the implementation. We know that Indian government is having various agencies where the research is mandated and the research of multidisciplinary nature need to be done. So governance should be an educated activity. So in that line, this NRF is going to link all these activities. Fourth and last one is NRF need to recognize the outstanding research and progress made by the people and the institutions. So NRF is having these 4 important activities. Now we have completed the new National Research Foundation. Let us enter into the 10th chapter, that is regulatory system. Now there is fragmented regulatory system, but this policy proposes 4 structures of regulation. Those are 4 structures. Those are regulation, accreditation, funding and academic standard setting. So this is to be done by 4 important verticals under an umbrella institution called Higher Education Commission of India. That means under Higher Education Commission of India, there is going to be a separate institutions for the regulation, accreditation, funding and academic standards and standard setting. So let us look into these 4 verticals. First vertical of Higher Education Commission of India is National Higher Education Regulatory Council, that is NHERC. This is going to regulate higher education except the medical and legal. This is going to concentrate on the governance, online and offline publication and the disclosure of various information by the higher educational institutions, and grievance redressal. Second vertical of Higher Education Commission of India is Meta accrediting body, that is National Accreditation Council. So this is going to work based on norms, governance, outcomes and graded accreditation of higher education institutions. I have explained you what is institutional development plan for 15 years according to the global practices. So accreditation should be based on the norms and governance. So all these kind of things along with the IDP for 15 years, keeping in view the global practices. Third vertical of HECI is Higher Education Grants Council. This is to carry out funding and financing based on transparent criteria, disbursement of scholarships, IDP, and progress made on the implementation. So third institution or third vertical of HECI is Higher Education Grant Council. This is going to fund disbursal, scholarship disbursal and review of the scholarships and institutional development plans and the progress made in the implementation. So this is third vertical. Fourth vertical of Higher Education Commission of India is General Education Council. This is going to frame graduate attributes, National Higher Education Qualification Framework, that is NHEQF, to come in the lines of NSQF on the vocational education. I have already told what is National Skill Qualification Framework. This is about the vocational education, right? In the similar manner, for the higher education also there is going to be a framework framed by the General Education Council under HECI. This is the fourth vertical of HECI. In framing this framework of higher education, there is going to be involvement of professional councils such as Indian Council for Agricultural Research, Veterinary Council of India, National Council for Teachers Education, Council of Architecture, National Council for Vocational Education and Training. So all these professional councils to assist to act as a professional standard setting bodies and members of GEC to lay down academic standards. Higher Education Commission of India. So we have discussed about the institutional structure. So how many verticals are there, how many internal institutions are there for GEC and what are their functions. Now let us look into the HECI in a holistic manner. HECI is going to be an independent body with the eminent public spirited experts, and HECI is going to resolve dispute among its four verticals and ensures a strict compliance and through stringent actions and the penalties it is going to work. So there are going to be one particular system for the entire higher education, that is Higher Education Commission of India, which will go to the accreditation, regulation, funding and standard setting, including the professional activities. So one particular organization with its four legs is going to monitor the entire higher education in India, which is fragmented right now. Then this policy also aims to stop commercialization of higher education on a key priority regulation system under HECI to focus on stopping this commercialization and to make very clearly the not-for-profit entity through public disclosures and the financial matters. We may have the doubt, what does we mean the not-for-profit company? It means that if an educational institution is getting some profit, that profit should not be invested in somewhere except for the another not-for-profit entity. So this is the benefit, this is the meaning of the not-for-profit company. That means not-for-profit entity means the profit of the institution should be again invested in another not-for-profit company. Okay, so this is about the stopping commercialization. Then regulatory regime to treat public, private and philanthropic higher education institutions at par based on the common minimum national guidelines for all legislative acts covering governance, finances, outcomes of the public disclosure. I have already explained about the separate legislative framework. So there is going to be a common minimum national guidelines under legislative framework that is going to come. So there are lot number of the legislative acts are going to be framed and passed by the government to fulfill the legislative framework of the educational institutions. Then higher educational institutions having philanthropic and public spirited intent to be encouraged to have a progressive regime of fees determination with the upper limit to offer scholarships, keeping in view the cost and social contribution of the institution. That means there is going to be a permission to the institutions, to the higher education institutions based on their social contribution and the cost consideration. So there is going to be a progressive regime of fees. This is about the 10th chapter, that is about regulatory system. Now let us go to the 11th and last chapter in the higher education of the national education policy, that is governance and the leadership. All higher education institutions to become self-governing institutions under Board of Governors, that is BOG, group of high qualified, competent and dedicated individuals through graded accreditation in a phased manner over a period of 15 years. Over a period of 15 years, there is going to be a Board of Governors based on technical competence through a graded accreditation. So what is the functions of this BOG? This Board of Governors going to concentrate on appointments, including institution heads. This board is going to take a decision regarding the governance, overarching legislations, and the selection of new members shall be carried out by that means the self members of the Board of Governors should be done by the Board of Governors itself, and the overarching legislation is going to come. That means already this policy mentions up to now 3 times about the overarching legislation and legislative act to for the higher education system. So this Board of Governors is going to be a supreme decision making body regarding appointment and all. Then BOG Board of Governors is going to be accountable to the stakeholders through transparent and self-disclosure of the relevant records, and it is going to be responsible for meeting all regulations of Higher Education Commission of India, Council of India, through the National Higher Education Regulatory Council. That means we know the first vertical of Higher Education Commission of India is the NHERC. So Board of Governors of an institution is going to be responsible for maintaining all the regulations, and it is accountable to the HECI. Then heads of institutions to be offered to persons with high academic and administrative capabilities through an impartial and merit-based process by eminent expert committee under Board of Governors. So institutional heads are going to be appointed taking into consideration their academic excellence and administrative capacities in a transparent manner. Then a stability of tenure for the head of the institution is very important for the development of suitable culture and to ensure smooth transition. That means from one particular person to other institutional head in a smooth manner. Now let us summarize. We have completed the governance, that is 11th chapter also. In this presentation, in this video, I have discussed almost all the significant information that is for the national education policy, that is part 2 regarding the higher education in 11 chapters elaborately. Along with this video, I am going to come out with the 2 more videos on national education policy, that means implementation, that is part 3 of the national education policy, and also I am going to come out with the multiple choice questions on national education policy for various competitive examinations. And in the description box, I would mention very detailed in a very detailed description of what topic at what time. So please follow it, and thanks for watching.